Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I want to start today off with thanking ProductTank and the organizers for this event today, Karsh, Melissa, Jerry. Thank you for having me here, and also Glenn. Thank you for Cribble for hosting this event. This is a fantastic venue. I don't know if you had a chance to go out or not, but this is a great day and a great venue. So I hope we have a good next maybe 30 or so minutes ahead of us. Before we jump in, please feel free to stop me and ask me any questions. Let's make this interactive, and let's have some fun today. So today we'll be diving into the Platform PM role here. You might have heard about this role. You might have seen this role before, but we might not fully understand what it entails. I want to start talking about that. And before that, I want to take a moment to introduce myself. I'm Kartik. I am currently the Director of Product for Data Platform at Amplitude. I've been in PM roles for a while, and the majority of that time has been spent in platform PM roles or platform-shaped PM roles. I'm really passionate about this aspect of a platform role because first, it helps me work on problems, helps me build product that really truly sort of leads to business results. Second, I get to build systems and building blocks that other people can then use and build on top of for whatever they are doing. And lastly, I get to operate at a layer in the tech stack that helps me stay close to the technology. That's something that's an interesting aspect of mine. I like to get my hands dirty, feel my fingers and fingerprints and everything I'm building, but at the same time, stay close to business outcomes and business value. So that way, I'm delivering value in a way that's that not a lot of other roles help me do. So I often get asked, hey, you're a platform PM, or you've been in platform PM roles for a while. What does it actually mean? I get this question even from other PMs. Many of us don't really understand what this role is. So this talk today is about that. So are you all ready? Awesome. Thank you. Before we begin, let's do a quick show of hands. How many folks here are PMs today? Awesome. How many are aspiring PMs? Awesome. Yeah, great. How many are platform PMs? That actually tracks the ratio. If you look at the PMs versus platform PMs, it's spot on. Okay, maybe quick hits one here and there. Any early thoughts or asks on what you'd like to get out of the call this next half an hour today? Any brave souls, Glenn?
Love to understand how you approach platform PM at Amplitude.
Cool, great. We'll cover that. Jerry?
Interested in, if we can, the go-to-market strategy for platforms, because they're kind of horizontal, but oftentimes, unless you're IT enterprise, you buy vertical, like an industry or solution. So what happens in a PM's mind when that's going on?
Great, we'll cover that. Yes, sir.
Why is the demand on the rise?
We'll talk about that.
What metrics do you look at to determine what makes a good platform versus a bad platform?
It's almost like I've seeded these questions. Great.
How does the KPIs and metrics differ from other product managers?
+1. Let's talk about that too. Yes, ma'am.
Prioritization, because you'll have competing people coming to you.
Yeah.
So how do you handle that?
Amazing. We are going to touch upon almost like all of those questions. If not, please hold me to that and we'll come back to it. There was one, yes.
I guess internal requests and external requests.
Okay, we can talk about that too. Cool, awesome. These are great questions, great prompts. Let's make sure that we cover all of that today. So the talk is organized in broadly these categories today. So we're going to talk through what platforms are, who they are for, the skills that you need as a platform PM, and the frameworks that you can use in your role as a platform PM. We'll also cover we'll also take some real life examples from my own personal past, from companies that are out there. And we'll also reserve some time for a product exercise so we can make this fun and interactive, so we can do some jamming and brainstorming together. The one other thing I want to touch upon today is this wave of new technology that's coming that we're all probably familiar with, the AI. How is the advent of AI changing our role as platform PMs? What is the opportunity that is ahead of us? So let's get into that. So let's start with what platforms are anyway. I want to take a few examples here to maybe set the stage and help explain how platforms differ. They come in all shapes, they come in all sizes, they have sort of like different customers. So let's maybe unpack those one by one. The first thing, let's say Stripe. This is a company that most of us are probably familiar with. Stripe is ultimately, it's an API that allows app builders, developers, people generally to be able to accept payments seamlessly. Here what's happening is someone is taking the Stripe API, building a product on top of that. So it's a building block that allows you to build your own product on top of it. The second one, Unity. This is, if you're not familiar with this is a company that allows game developers to take a game engine, embed that into their sort of development process. So once they've built a game, they can deploy it seamlessly across various different app stores. So if you're playing on iOS, if you're playing on Android, if you're playing on the Mac, somewhere on the console, you don't have to build the same game 4 or 5 different times. You can have a unified sort of like gaming experience. And again, this is an SDK that is offered to the game developers who are their customers. And the SDK is a building block here. The next one here is RBAC. Anyone familiar with this acronym? Great. Yeah, that's exactly what it means. It stands for Role-Based Access Control. The main use case for this is generally in enterprise applications where administrators are coming in and say, hey, they want to be able to control which parts of the application are allowed or accessible by which set of users within their company. So basically, they can think about it as a building block. Admins at customer sites want to use that as a building block to define these group of people can access this part of the application. This other group of people can access this other part of the application and have visibility and control over that. The last one is design system. Anyone else familiar with this? Yeah, so generally, design system is a library, basically, that allows developers, designers, PMs to efficiently develop and ship consistent experiences. You can, again, think about this as a building block that allows product builders to ship consistent experiences fast without having to reinvent the wheel. So if you have 2 different pages, you have an upgrade button or a buy button, you don't want to have to design that and build that twice. You can use the same common component. So in all of these cases, each of these are platform products or platform experiences that customers are actually getting value out of. One way I like to sort of like map this out is in this 2x2 grid. On the x-axis here is you have your external customers, you have your internal customers. On your y-axis, you have these foundations and your experiences on top. So basically what that allows you to do is you think about what categories or what type of platform products exist out there and how do we sort of like treat them differently. Just as an example, we talked about I think this slide is getting cut off on the side, but on the right side on the bottom here, it's talking about developers looking to build apps using SDKs. So in that Unity example, it's a building block that you're shipping. It by itself is not that useful, but customers can take that and like make games out of that or make other applications out of that. On the top right, you have like product-wide capabilities where administrators are getting an experience. They're using that to satisfy their own needs, but also to extend that in a way to make sure that their full requirements are being met. The design systems example is somewhere on the bottom left. And here, the quote-unquote product or platform delivery here is a common framework. Any other examples that folks here can think of? If not, we can sort of like,
The access, the y-axis.
I have foundations called otherwise building blocks in the bottom and experiences, which is like things that you can directly consume on the top there. So again, this is just one way to slice it. This doesn't have to be the only way you sort of like imagine this landscape, but this is one way I've found it to be useful. And depending on where you are, what product you're working on, what your business needs are, you might have like, you might fall in some category, you might have like a little bit of one and the other, but this is just one way to conceptualize things. Yes, sir.
Do products like Airbnb and Uber as well are included in these kind of platforms? Because I'm pretty sure you don't have building blocks as well.
Yeah, so I would call them closer to marketplaces where you have, they're bringing together supply and demand and they're facilitating activity or commerce or value. They might not necessarily fall in this category, but that's how I would think about it. Yeah.
Question, are you including APIs under building blocks?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. So Stripe, for example, is an API, so that would be somewhere in the bottom. Yeah. So effectively, what platforms are doing here is that they are abstracting away complexity. So if you think about that line here, the horizontal line as a platform, below that line, you can have a ton of stuff going on. You can have like a whole network. You can have like, a lot of different complexity, a lot of different sort of logic or many, many different things happening. But as a user or as a consumer or customer on the top, you kind of don't have to care about that. You are basically relying on that, a stable, common, defined interface that stays true over a period of time to be able to derive value. In the API example, for example, in where you're getting payments facilitated through Stripe, they could be adding more and more currency like capabilities. Today they could launch in the US, tomorrow in the UK, and like throughout the country. But there is like throughout the world. But there is a single API that still facilitates that entire growth, and that interface in this case, which is the API, is basically staying stable. The other advantage of this world is you could have new technologies coming in the bottom. AWS, for example, if you're using AWS, majority of internet companies run on a cloud provider like AWS or GCP or Azure. They could be switching out technologies. They could be switching out like servers and everything else. You don't need to know about it. You just need to trust that, hey, I'm paying for this and I'm getting this value out of this, and that part of my interface or interaction is staying fixed. And ultimately, what it lets people on the top, users in this context, do is it allows them to like innovate faster. They can move faster. They don't need to worry about like the entire tech stack here. So that is the beauty of having platforms. I promised we'll do an exercise. Let me quickly set a little bit of a stage here, and then we'll jump right into it. I work at Amplitude. For those who don't know, Amplitude is a digital analytics platform or provider. What digital analytics actually means is if you are a PM, if you're a product builder, you can go into let's say you have a website, you're hosting a website. You can go into Amplitude and understand what's happening, what people are doing on that website. You can look at visitors, you can look at page views. If you're a PM, you're probably trying to understand which features are people engaging with, which features are people not engaging with. All of this is made possible by the screenshot at the bottom, where when you're creating that website or when you're sort of like installing Amplitude, you call this one line of code that allows for a lot of data to flow through. And that's what I do. I lead data platforms. So when, for example, we have a native SDK or we have that one single line of code, which is that HTTP API, all of that product tracking data. So if a user is performing action X, if a user has completed a purchase Y, it comes into this like a data store within Amplitude. And as providers of the data platform, what we do is we make sure that that data is coming in. That data is, whenever a customer needs to export that to other destinations of their choice, we are facilitating that. But most importantly, we are making it available. We're preparing it for all the charting, all the analysis, all the experimentation, all the sort of like insights and actions use cases that any specific users is deriving out of like various different Amplitude products or end use cases. So that's the context here. The exercise that I want to do is I want us to like maybe work together to define, hey, who might be the customers of a data platform at Amplitude? What might their needs be, and what does success look like here? And we'll talk about like metrics. What metrics here might be actually what might we track to make sure that they are successful in this case? So, who wants to start us off? Who might be customers for data platform?
I'd say your buyer customer is maybe your chief analytics officer or someone in IT. I think your users can be many across the enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
So you have multiple customers at the enterprise tool.
The client company.
Sorry, say that again.
Marketing analyst.
Yes,
the client
marketing analyst. That's a good one. And just to repeat, for those who might not have heard that, the earlier point was like the chief analytics officer might be the buyer, and all the users might be the users.
Your operations team, what's working, what isn't working.
The operations team, yeah. Just to recall that 2x2 matrix, think about internal customers, think about external customers.
External, great perspective. External customers can be, let's say Amplitude is being used by a company that sells e-commerce. The next customer could be a customer who's using the platform e-commerce to see the needs and through for their buyers and potentially even out from there. Every kind of customer, every buyer-seller customer combination would be a user.
Yeah, so all of those are great prompts. For the conversation, for the purpose of this conversation, let's say our internal customers might be other teams who are sort of like leveraging some of the data that's in Amplitude to make those charting experiences be perfect, make those experimentation analyses products available to customers or something else. And some of our external customers, let's say, in the context of, hey, I am an engineer at a company X who's just purchased Amplitude. I'm installing, or I'm sort of like embedding that single line of code into my application to help data flow. That might be one example of our external customer. Or if I'm like in the buyer persona, hey, I am a data leader at a big kind of company, and we have just acquired Amplitude as a way to sort of help us build better products. And in that case, I want to make sure that whatever data is going into Amplitude, I'm able to extract that out, so I have a copy of it myself as well. So that might be. Let's go with those few examples. What would we say their major needs are? Let's do column one. The middle column here, and let's go with the internal customer persona of, hey, I'm another team member who's leveraging this data that's in the data platform to then make some of my charting experiences better.
You want to know about errors and you want to know about people who finish the pipeline.
Great.
You'd want to know which types of charts are being used the most frequently.
Yep. One more.
Easy recall.
Mm-hmm.
You're just trying to find the information that you need in order to even build those charts.
Yeah. So basically, it all comes down to, hey, the end user has a need around, like, they want to, let's say, build a segmentation chart, or let's say a funnel chart that might help them understand user behavior. Can this data actually support that use case, or does this need to be processed or managed or massaged in a different way so that that outcome is being enabled? So that might be one. What those people that persona's needs might be. Maybe like jumping to the data leader persona here of, like, hey, they want to be able to, like, have a copy of all the data that's coming in their own ecosystem. What might their needs be here?
An integration maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They want to know the granularity, they want to know the.
Yeah. Yeah.
Want to be able to check that all the data is where it's supposed to be?
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Cost, feedback on cost.
Excellent. Yeah. All of these are great ideas. So I think just to summarize, the data leader might care about, hey, is this integration possible? I have like this data warehouse that is from this technology. I use Snowflake or I use Databricks. Is it supported? Or how much is it going to cost me? Or is it like, hey, are there any errors coming out of it? Is it failing? Is it where it's supposed to be? All of these are great ideas, and that's what their needs might be. To that last column, what might success look like? Hey, when will these people feel like they are being successful in their roles by using data platform at Amplitude? This is the last one, I promise. After that, we'll go through.
Impactful outcomes. They can connect
Mhm.
the tool to
Mhm.
some decision that they're making or some project that they're
Mhm.
doing, and
Mhm.
it's actually helping them
Mhm.
make better decisions.
Yeah.
They can trace the data back to its source.
Yeah. So some sort of visibility, some sort of observability. Yeah, great. All of these are great ideas. So someone had asked about metrics and about like how you know what success feels like. For platform products, it's actually very important that we define the metrics that matter for things that so that you're actually looking at the things that help not only the success of the platform itself, but you have an eye for, is that metric or is that success criteria that you've chosen lead to something that ultimately leads to the company's success overall. So ultimately leads to business outcomes. The way I think about it, again, like this might be a theme, is there are a few aspects of metric categories that might be useful for platforms. But again, this is by no means supposed to be an fully exhaustive list. But let's start with the left item here. Adoption and usage. This can be things like adoption rate. This can be things like usage volume. This can be things like time to first use. So when I think about that, anyone who's adopting the Amplitude platform, they are given a one line of code. Like, they have to install that one line of code. How long does it take for someone to do that activity and then for data to start flowing? Is it 1 day? Is it 10 days? Is it 15 days? Is it 100 days? What is happening in the middle? Are people getting confused, or are people like not caring about it? So that might be some indications of like adoption style or usage style metrics here. Velocity and efficiency is also super important and pretty interesting as a platform metric. This is something that previously the previous speaker had also like sort of alluded to, where when you're building something, are you building for one person? Are you building for one little use case of one person? Or are you building in a way that allows everyone to gain value out of that platform? And if you're saving X amount of time or Y amount of effort per every action, what is that multiplier effect that you're driving through your platform? And the extension of that is cost saved. Instead of having everyone on top of every user be able to like doing everything again and again, how much are you abstracting away from them so they can focus on something smaller ideally and save that cost? And this is again cut off here. The last column is talking about reliability and trust. Your platform users need to be able to trust you, need to be able to feel like this is reliable. If they are sending data to us, that means that, to your point, if data is coming in, is it actually where it's supposed to be? They thought they had sent it, but if we say, hey, we lost it, that's not a great place to start. So we need to have like that, an aspect of uptime or availability. It could manifest in other ways, but the aspect of trust. It could have an aspect of quality, like where if it's an API, if you're making an API call, does it actually give you a response that you're expecting? Or ultimately it bubbles up into like this softer metric or qualitative metric of satisfaction. Are people feeling satisfied that they purchased the right thing and that they're getting value out of this? Just to also again like reiterate, this might be examples, and this is the key here as a platform PM that you need to do is pick the right metric. You're not going to be able to like have a whole list of metrics that you're tracking, that might become onerous very quickly. But picking the right metric, prioritizing those, and sort of chasing and making sure that they are successful would be the right way to sort of like bake that into your workflows. So I think the next here is your role as a platform PM. On the left here is a circle that I'm helping, sort of like the way I'm illustrating this is what your customers want. That's their entire set of use cases. That's all of their articulated or non-articulated needs. You've done a bunch of interviews. You've looked at a bunch of data. You've gathered a lot of insights, and that's what they want. On the right circle, and I think the color contrast is not showing that very clearly, is a circle that says what's easy to deliver through your product. How many times have you gone to your PM, or like as a PM, you've gone to your engineering team like, hey, customers are asking this, and you've gotten like, ooh, that's going to be very hard. Oh, actually, that's going to take 8 months, and we're going to have to do a bunch of refactor to be able to get to that outcome. That's what that circle is denoting. Is your platform or is your entire product stack ready to sort of like solve the problems that customers want today? And your role, or not yours, but generally platform PM roles, are focused on making sure that overlap, that middle, is as large as possible. Ideally, those circles overlap fully, and then you're like, customers want this, and we can like go fast and build them what they want, and we are off to the races. Or you have to be like, oh, slowly, make your stack ready to be able to like support these customer use cases. You don't want to have them be non-overlapping, in which case there is something seriously wrong there. So I'd say that's your major, as a business outcome, that's the primary thing that platform PMs are driving towards. While we are here, let's debunk some common myths. I mentioned that, like, I get often asked, like, what do platform PMs do? They are coming at it, like, a lot of questions are coming at it from some of these, maybe one or more of these myths. The first one is like, hey, it's just technical project management. All you do is like you follow along when something is happening, you're tracking projects, you're delivering. The reality here is that platform PMs are decision makers, like any other PMs. You're operating at a different, maybe your scope is different, but ultimately you are responsible for product vision, you're responsible for product outcomes and business outcomes, and you're making roadmap decisions that drive towards those outcomes. The second thing here is like, second myth here is platform PMs don't need to care about UX. User experience is everyone's responsibility. You might not have a lot of products or every single tool that you're working with have a UI component with it, but that doesn't mean you don't have users, you don't have customers, and you don't have like stakeholders that you need to care about making them successful. So the reality is that platform PMs do need to care about user experience a lot. The third thing is related, again, similar business impact. We are just like, hey, prioritizing things that other teams want. No, I think ultimately it's on the responsibility of platform PMs to make sure that while there might be many different questions coming in from various different teams, to your point, I think your question earlier of like, how do you prioritize internally when multiple teams are asking multiple different things? It comes back to business impact. What is the overall impact on the entire company of every single aspect platform investment that you're making, and how are you making sure that you're prioritizing that? That's the main role platform PMs are making here. And the last one here is like, you need to be an engineer to be an effective platform PM. This is, again, not true. I've seen great platform PMs who have the right mindset, who just have the right sort of energy, who get a lot of energy and excitement operating at that layer where you're interacting with multiple stakeholders, you are sort of working with a lot of other teams and making outcomes happen as a collective. So that's the mindset and attitude and sort of like skill you need as a platform PM, not necessarily an engineering degree or software development experience in the past. Along the same lines, I want to touch upon a few hats that you often wear as a platform PM, like starting with, you're often a skilled facilitator. You have a lot of internal stakeholders and you have a lot of customer stakeholders. How are you balancing those needs? How are you making sure that everyone is feeling heard? All of those folks' use cases and needs are accounted for, but you're making the right sort of the right decision for the company. So you might have the right skills of being an edge whisperer, where you're like, hey, this is what the customer wants, this is what we need to do. Can we sort of like agree upon as a collective? Can we move forward? You might be playing the role of a subject matter expert, where you need to dive deep. You need to understand, hey, there's a new topic, there's something new. You're entering a new market, and it's coming up with like a bunch of regulatory, and just as an example, regulatory concerns and questions and things like that. If you're operating in EMEA, GDPR, privacy is a big thing. How do you actually, as a platform PM, become the subject matter expert, become the guru, and teach everyone else, like saying, hey, this is what actually is needed, and this is what individually we can do to make our company successful. You can be that single point of contact who is acting as that product expert in the area, in the company. And you're also being a long-term strategist and raising the bar for everyone else. You don't want to cut corners. It's about like long-term, sustainable, durable products that you're building. So yes, it might be valuable to move fast. Moving fast does not mean that you're cutting into a lot of corners. It's about prioritizing. So helping people understand how sort of the entire company or the platform or the product individually can move fast while preserving, or while sort of like not taking on too many downsides or too many trade-offs here. So making that choice, helping everyone else understand what that bar can look like, maybe looking at competitors, maybe looking at like best in class, and getting inspired by everyone else. That's another hat that you often wear. In combination, this is again cut off here, but in combination, like what you're doing for your company is you're being a force multiplier. You are coming in and you are helping people do much more than they could otherwise achieve. And that's I'd say one of the biggest outcomes that you can drive for your company as a platform PM. I talked about AI earlier. AI is changing all of our roles. You might have like seen versions of this illustration here, but basically what's happening is AI is changing, like the advent of AI tools, the like new capabilities that are available are sort of like starting to blur the lines between various different roles. What a PM is, what a PM is and primarily is responsible for, or what their day-to-day tasks used to be, what an engineer's day-to-day tasks used to be, what a designer's day-to-day tasks used to be. All of those are starting to like converge, and AI tools are sort of like bringing in more, or like accelerating that convergence much more than ever before. As a platform PM, I think if you've ever been had experience with that role, you might often realize that not all platform PMs are staffed with, hey, here's a designer that you get to work with, and like they're together you're helping build great products. You might also often be like, we have this other team that is staffed with designers. You might have to share some of their time when the need arises. With the advent of AI, you have a lot more tools at your disposal. Who here has used like prototyping tools like Bolt or Cursor or Bolt or Lovable or Figma Make and things like that? Yeah. So you might know what I'm talking about here. Within minutes, you can actually create a prototype that illustrates your idea of this is what our users want, and this is what what I can envision a user experience looking like. I talked about how platform PMs also again need to care a lot about UX. This is one way that without sort of like needing a lot of external help, PMs can then say, oh, I'm starting to use Bolt, I'm starting to use Figma Make or Cursor or like Lovable, and here's a prototype. Here's how I can imagine not just the platform outcome being, but all the end-to-end experience looking like for our end user or for our customer. And you might have similar experiences if you're so inclined to use Cursor and like ship your first tool, which might be entirely vibe coded. But again, this is not supposed to be that can just work as an illustrative jumping off point and tighten the iterative loops that you have with your stakeholders like orange partners or design partners and folks like that. None of this is taking away your key role of being customer centric, putting on that empathy hat of what do customers actually need today, prioritizing the right things to make sure that you are solving the biggest, most urgent, or like the most impactful problems first. All this is helping you do is to move fast to sort of like improve your productivity. And I think that as platform PMs, once they sort of like get a grasp of all of this, this can become a superpower. There was a question earlier, like, hey, is demand for platform PMs actually on the rise? I'd say yes. There is an aspect of, hey, products themselves are getting more and more complex. Things that never used to be possible before are now getting more possible. Ecosystems are expanding, so you have like multiple different products are like talk to each other. There's like a default expectations that things will connect to each other. Rise of AI. You might have like, when I talk about shapes of platform PM, there is this whole trend, not just it's a valid trend of we need to rethink our product experience in an AI first world. We need to infuse AI into every aspect of our product that our customers experience. That I'd say is a platform effort. And finally, we helping customers move very fast. So what is that interface? What is that stable platform, stable sort of like framework that we can provide? That's what I'd say again is a platform shape role. So I'd say, yes, platform PM is on the rise. If you go by titles, this is a source. I've sourced this from like Lenny's newsletter. If you don't read it, it's a great sort of resource. The sort of like overall number of jobs that with an AI PM title is clearly trending up. So I think there is something real here. So lastly, should you be one? Should you be a platform PM here? So just to recap some of the themes that we talked about here. If you care about systems design, building things that are like with different components, build with different modules that come together in a synergistic way where 1 + 1 is like greater than 2, is 3 or 4, or even 10 or 20. If you are like a highly customer-centric person where you really care about like the outcomes of your users, your customers, not just of your external customers, but also your internal stakeholders. If you want to be, or if you like influencing across teams, you have a lot of stakeholders, you have a lot of like parties that you need to keep sort of engaged with, if that's an activity that you like engaging in. And if you like to think about long-term outcomes where you're not just like you're thinking not just next week, next month, next quarter, you're thinking end of this year, next year, 2 years from now. I think I'd say platform PM is the right role for you. And that's my talk. That's my LinkedIn. I don't know if it'll scan, but it was, that's my talk. Any questions that I can take or answer? Yeah.
The slide where you had the myths, so it was that how do we influence the business impact? And when I tie that back to the metrics slide that you had, the challenge is that how do I, so if my VP or my skip level manager, my customers are all other PMs.
Right.
They are not the customers of those PMs. So the business often has metrics that are not related to that. So business impact metrics are often hidden from me, or I have a challenge putting my metrics into my VP's metrics.
Right. Yes. That is a pretty common sort of like aspect of platform PMing where a lot of work that you are doing needs a little bit of advocacy. It can feel invisible because there is no big dashboard that is being observed at the C-level that says, hey, some metric is being sort of like, did that metric move in the last quarter or last month or not? That doesn't, that can be a challenge. And I think that doesn't take away from the value or the impact or the outcome. Oftentimes it can get baked into or one way to sort of like interpret that would be, I had a reliability and trust sort of column and there's a quality metric. What is the quality of this platform that lets your customer PMs, like PMs in other teams, take that work and run fast so that they can move their needle. In the example of an Amplitude data platform, if let's say customers are internal PMs, and let's say if we have some event data type coming in, if we don't have other event data types coming in, not coming in, that clearly impacts the ability of that PM to be able to say, I can serve you this chart, but I can't serve you this chart type. So connecting the dots between how do end users experience the lack or availability of a platform or availability of a thing in your platform would be the best way to sort of like storytell or like be able to communicate the need for or value of any particular thing.
Following up on the metric stuff, like you mentioned quality, how do you actually measure it within your domain and scope, right? Like, is there a hard number, or is it more like a qualitative metric that you then kind of put into a story?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. There are, at a very sort of like grassroots level, it can be a pretty number or quantitative level metric. For example, we integrate with some of the larger, like so let's say data warehouses where data is moving in, moving out. To someone else's point earlier, the persona there is like a data engineer, like at a customer, and they're like, I want to be able to send like this data on a weekly basis or a monthly or even a daily basis, and I want to make sure that if I'm sending you X data, it's showing up here, and I want to like double check that did it happen or not. So visibility to them, clarity to them that happened, and maybe some sort of like, hey, you might have like a dashboard that says these were the jobs that pushed this data, and these were successful, and this was the amount of data that moved in, this was the type of data. So some amount of drill down. That's effectively building trust with them in a way that they understand. Like, this is an engineer. They want to be able to debug if things are going bad. Are you giving them that visibility? Are you giving them that tools so that they can react to it? So that would be a sort of like a starting with a quantitative metric of like what actually happened to the qualitative metric of like, ooh, if something fails, I can actually do something with it. And that builds trust over time. And that sort of like fosters a better relationship with that customer.
Thank you.
I think, so I've been a platform PM for over a decade. I think one of the toughest things I think about traditional PM when you're like a PM on a product is the fact that like when you build features in a product, it's immediately available for customers to jump at it and start using it, right? Like Amplitude, right?
Yeah.
Add some new thing in the UX, and then you start tracking it, like how people using it. When you're building out a platform, you really need somebody on the other end who's building something that uses the platform. And so often, like even if you build something that a customer wants, they're going to now have to do development on their side. I worked at Auth0, for example. I worked on the platform for Auth0. We were an identity as a service. We're now merged with Okta. I say we, I'm not there anymore. And so, you know, we're like enabling all these developers that are basically building systems on top of what we're doing. So every time we roll something out new, now we have to wait to see like, are they actually going to use it? And there's a much higher barrier in terms of like, they have to get their engineering teams lined up to do that work. And so I think that's a huge shift that I've experienced in terms of platform PM versus
absolutely.
That fact that you need an engineer somewhere in the middle building something and going back to their team to make changes to the product to then get the full value.
That is 100% like a thing, because and one way I was
it's bad, it's just different.
It's different, and it's sometimes difficult. Like there is an active sort of like effort, energy, and sort of investment that goes into A, building the product, and B, getting it off the ground. And that might require a little bit of evangelism, a little bit of like education, a little bit of teaching, a little bit of like finding 5, 10, 15 early access customers and be like, hey, can you start with this? Can you sort of like help me give feedback? One of the ways or one of the metrics that typically like that represents or that captures that entire exact feeling is like time to value. You ship something, how long did it take for someone to actually get value out of this? Was it like a day, half a day, or was it like 100 days? In which case, if it's like on the upper end, you need to really figure out like how do you bring it down?
And the hard part is to quantify how much revenue is also being unlocked.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's kind of gray, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
being able to say, oh, well, this customer was wildly successful.
Yeah.
Because they were able to build over this thing.
Yeah.
And that enabled this much more revenue. But you have to go through that exercise.
Yep.
Because the danger you get in when you're in Platform PM is does the company really perceive the value? Like when I was at Splunk, we had companies like Amazon using our stuff, they found the value, but our own executives didn't get it. Right?
Yeah.
So we had to do a lot of work
Yeah.
to get them to understand that, like, if you pull this will be a dramatic impact
Yeah.
on the customers. So making those connections, I think, is difficult.
Yeah, and 100%. There's like, 1 second. Go ahead, sorry.
Finish. I have another question. I like that because I want to explore the skills. I like the last slide that you had. What are the skills for a PM that is a platform PM? And I like that the mix that you said, I come from the project world and you said it's not a technical project manager. So can we just elaborate on that?
Mhm.
Analyze what are the skills that we need to build or we need to have or like really acquire to get to that
Yeah.
successful role?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key skill, especially coming from a project management world, one of the sort of like big differences that you'll see in these two roles, or like PM versus project or program management, is like where is that decision making about what we are building as a company happening. In most cases, that's decided through the roadmap, and PMs are responsible for the roadmap. So PMs are deciding what is getting built. Some of the biggest skills there are like, in that last slide I talked about their customer empathy, customer centricity, having a good sense for what are our customers actually looking for across the board, making sure that you have a high quality, high enough signal for if I zoom out and look at not just one customer or the loudest one or the one I could find, look out and zoom out at my entire, like a representative sample of my entire customer base. What are the key themes that are popping out? And how do I pick those biggest themes and build them first so that my impact is maximized? So you're trying to maximize that impact. And in other cases, like a lot of the skill, as you're doing it over and over again, sort of like gets also talked about in the context of product sense. Are you building the right thing without actually and making quick decisions that gets you to outcomes, good outcomes fairly quickly without knowing a lot of detail, like a lot of information. So yeah, being able to make decisions quickly, or like good decisions based on customer input, customer empathy, being able to sort of facilitate an outcome like communication, collaboration, that becomes like pretty good sort of a great skill to have. And again, lastly, I'd round this out by long-term strategic thinking. If you're zooming out 1 year, 2 year, 3 year horizon, what are you building today, or that leads you to success or maybe great outcomes in that horizon? And what vision do you have of product success in that horizon? So I think those would be the skills I'd sort of lean on to make that switch or to sort of learn more about that role.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I may have missed this, but can you touch on the different teams that you work with to take product to market and how one may transition from one of those teams into product?
Yeah. The different teams that sort of a PM or platform PM role intersects with generally, you have your engineering counterparts. They are the ones who you're that's the team you're working with the most closely, maybe spending the most hours with. You have your sort of go-to-market, a number of go-to-market teams. To break that down, you might have in an enterprise B2B, let's say example, you might have sales reps, sales folks who are actually doing that selling motion. You have solutions engineers who are sort of helping explain to customers and helping get to what they call technical close, which is basically like helping understand a customer's landscape and explain to them how the solution may solve their problems. You might have other adjacent roles around like, hey, someone like a professional services who's like an expert in implementing this specific product at a customer site. You might have customer services managers or representatives who are like helping customers get the most value out of the tool. And that might be examples of like the go-to-market folks. You might have marketing folks who are helping you tell a better story about this is what we built, this is what is valuable, and this is like why you should buy it. So they're helping tell that coherent, great story externally. You work with design, who are sort of like making the work, sort of like imagining the ideas and the sort of like customer needs and describing that in like what that looks like, what the interface looks like. You might have I think of PMs as such a nexus role that you're intersecting with literally every other function that you can imagine in a company. So when you're trying to make a transition from any one of those roles into PMing, I think the skills that she had asked about and like we talked about just now are the core skills here. Like, are we demonstrating enough customer empathy here? Are we demonstrating the sort of like understanding of what will it take to make our business successful in the long run? And are we thinking about that? Are we able to prioritize that? Are we able to paint a vision for that? Are we able to like sort of like, again, in some cases, PMing can feel like you're herding cats. You're like moving a lot of different people who are all trying to go in different directions towards one goal with a deadline, and we're trying to hit. And you are effectively in most cases the DRI or the directly responsible individual for making that outcome happen. And how are you sort of like corralling the resources that are adjacent to you without having direct authority? So this idea of influencing without authority gets thrown out a lot, but that's kind of like what it means here. So being able to perform that action repeatedly would be another way. So I think demonstrating these skills, regardless of whichever role you are in right now, would be the first way, or would be the like sort of the best way to sort of like make that transition, make that jump into PMing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about, you're talking about value, and I'm curious about how the culture and the incentives and the different departments and the organizations that you've worked in have worked and not worked. And so like just for a shortcut, if we just think of profit as being something that aggregates everything down, and you can be profitable either by bringing in new revenue, decreasing costs, but like one thing that I notice that gets overlooked a lot is preventing churn. It's not very popular or sexy, I guess, for people to think about. So I'm just curious about people's experiences about which cultures have worked.
I found that it's been really difficult in heavily sales-driven roles.
Right, so sales
where it's just like total focus on the revenue number, because a lot of things you're doing with the platform are like long lead, and they're enabling revenue in the future. But if you're just very short-sighted about like bottom line numbers, I've seen actually, and at Splunk actually that was a challenge for us because we were a heavily sales-driven organization. It took a lot of fighting. That's what I've seen.
Yeah, so I think my thoughts on this are like, especially when it comes to churn, there's like often a saying there, like, every dollar in churn that is saved is vastly more valuable than a new dollar in sale that you make. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. It's vastly easier to preserve and better serve and grow your business with your existing customers than acquire them, ignoring them, and go after like new ground all the time. And this is where like sort of like the platform PMing, like the longer term mindset can help a lot. So going back to the culture and the value, an organization that recognizes that it's not just about like always going and like hunting for new revenue here and there. It's also about making sure that people come back and get the value out of your platform or your sort of like product that they were originally promised. That's, I think, would be the culture that I would optimize for. Or like they both are important, but I think equal importance to making sure that preserving, growing is equally important as like building that new revenue on top.
And where have you worked? How have those incentives worked? So that your
Yeah.
sales team is actually aligned with that, and everyone across the board, including executives, are aligned with that.
Yeah, I think fortunately the last sort of like few companies where I've spent a lot of time, it's I think there has been some good understanding at the leadership level of like this phenomenon and this sort of like promotion of this culture and value of let's build for the long term. Let's make sure that we made a promise when we acquired a customer to the customer that they're going to get some value. Let's actually follow through and make sure that they receive that value. And there has been sort of like, maybe I've just been lucky to sort of work in organizations that have recognized that. So when that happens, you have the sort of like business outcome of like growing, but also growing healthily and sustainably. But B, as a PM, you have the leverage or you have the roadmap or you have the runway to actually do the things that you had on your roadmap for a while. And I think that's, maybe you have similar different takes here, but
Yeah, no, but I've experienced a similar thing. I mean, I think the other thing about the long lead, and you touched on marketplaces. You know, a lot of times when you get companies that are building platforms, there ends up being some marketplace angle, and where that helps customers in the long term is things that your team would never have the bandwidth or resources to build, but which there may be real value. Somebody else can do it and can offer value back to your customers. So I think that, you know, that again fits in that kind of longer lead.
yeah,
I think companies that are really committed to platform, their salespeople learn like the value, learn how to like engage and bring that into the pitch, the value that the platform offers.
Yeah, and to the point of metrics of like that executives are looking at, some of these platform value metrics, one way, like ultimately show up at things that leaders care about in a way. So then when you're looking at, when your CEO or like executive leadership team is looking at some of those, hey, time to value, how long is it taking, or for someone to get first value out of this thing, or quality, or sort of like, you know, this multiplier effect of like time saved or like cost saved, or like what are you doing with your platform? If those metrics show up in those like dashboards or like things that folks are monitoring, that would be another way to tell whether like the right sort of like structurally set up, are those organizations structurally set up to prioritize and promote these things.
I'd like to thank Kartik for sharing so much with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Amazing.